Now, what can everyone do? Because I think it's hard because as a parent, maybe you listen to this podcast and you're like, you guys are making so much sense. The stuff coach had my daughter doing at practice is ridiculous. Like it was too high volume too soon. The girls' knees are hurting. Our team's dropping like flies. And like I get parents like they don't want to say something or micromanage the coach, which I don't really recommend that either. So it's like
No,
kind of
and neither do
a
I.
hard situation. So what can parents do without stepping on the coach's toes? How can they prepare their daughter best for that type of situation? Because it is really hard.
And I think that you've hit on a really interesting point here. Number one is, as a parent myself, I was very mindful that I wanted to get my child used to articulating information to the coach. I don't think I did a great job. I think I probably did too much for them. But at some point, what we're trying to prepare is an athlete that's ready to go off to college and fight their own battles. So there's a part of it where we've got to try and support the child to feel like if they are sore, if they are. So I often use like three questions, and you can translate this into American speak for me.
Okay.
So we often say to the parents, ask the kid as they come out of school, or if they're going off to training, try and get an idea of how full their battery is on that day. Okay, so we might say to you, how sore are you out of 10, where 1 is like, I'm really, really sore, and 10 is, no, I feel great. Okay, and then how tired are you? And then the third one, how stressed are you? Now, if they're scoring like ones and twos, they're sore, they're stressed, they're tired, then there's a really good reason why you might then say, you know what, maybe we should just skip training today, and we should just let the coach know that if you train today, there's a really high risk that you're going to get injured. They've maybe got a fever, they've got a cold, and they're kind of fretting that if they miss training, they'll get dropped, or it won't look good, or they'll let somebody down. But actually, if your kid's getting, they're sore, they're stressed, and they're tired, then those are the times when we know they won't tolerate the same load. And particularly at pre-season where they're not got much capacity anyway, that's a risk. Or could they go and maybe just do some of the technical and tactical elements of the training, but sit out from all the high intensity stuff? So it depends on the format of the session. If they're scoring in the middle there, then we'd say, yeah, go to training. But before the coaching starts, just go and have a word with the coach and just let him know that you've got sore knees and that your physio has told them to try and go easy for a couple of days. If they're sort of scoring 4s and 5s across the board, they're basically like bouncing around like a bunny, and they can go and train hard. So what we're trying to educate children is to communicate soreness or dropping capacity to their coaches. And we often combine those three into kind of telling kids that they've got a battery like a phone battery, and sometimes it's more depleted than others, and trying to think about how their performance is only going to be really, really good when the battery's pretty full. Their injury risk is going to be really, really high when their battery is on power saving mode. And can they learn to moderate their intensity? And kids quite often, they can't like choose how much volume to do. Quite often if they're in school or in their camp or whatever, then somebody else is dictating how long the session is, but the kid can determine how hard they go. And understanding that they're heroes, they're pros. So in the UK setting, I live near Manchester City, so I'm a fan of Manchester City. And I'll just pick one of the kids and always say to the kids, are you a Man United fan or are you a Man City fan, which are the two big teams near me? And we'll often say, like, who's your favorite player? And then, okay, so they played yesterday or they played on Saturday, and how hard out of 10 do you think they worked? And they'll usually say like 9 or 10. And then you say, well, how hard do you think they worked the next day? Do you think they went training? And they'll go, nah, they'd have had a rest day. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Do you do that after a hard session? No. But sometimes it's dictated by pitch availability that we end up with the kids doing like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. and then rest day Thursday, Friday. That's really tough on a young body. And we'd never do it to a professional soccer player. And yet, because of coach availability, kids availability, pitch availability, we end up sometimes having a situation where the competitive schedule means they play a match on a Sunday, they train hard on a Monday. That's not ideal, and it's nobody's fault. It is what it is in junior sport, but it doesn't mean it's right with the science.
Mhm. That's such a good point that the pros are getting more recovery than kids nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, in Europe, we try to aim for no more than 2 matches a week. They'll
Mhm.
train light after the match days. So, mid-season, those guys are going to be doing max 2 hard sessions a week in competition and absolute maximum 2 hard sessions a week in training.
Yeah. It's so crazy, but I think you give such really good advice on I mean, again, parents, like, please don't micromanage the coach and tell them their preseason's
Nope.
ridiculous. Just don't do that. It is ridiculous. It is what it is. But Angela, your advice is so great. Let the kid kind of manage their intensity within practice if their battery really is that low, because we know that fatigue leaves them at that higher risk for injury. And as you were talking there, I was thinking like they can even volunteer at practice, like, okay, I'll be the target player. I'll just stand. I won't be doing all the running in the small side game. I'll be the target player. Or maybe you'll be the neutral player. Like just find ways to kind of like manage that and not always be involved in the high speed running if you're really that low with your battery. I think that's such good advice. And I've never heard that one before. So I think it's really great.
So we have on the Kids Back to Sport website, there's a free resource saying why do kids get injured, and we go into there's loads of free resources for parents on the site. And what we often say to if they're worried about a coach maybe just being a little bit over enthusiastic, then maybe download the resources that we have on the site and just wing that over to the coach and say, I got signposted to this and I found it really, really useful. I wondered if other parents might find it useful, and
That's
hopefully the
great.
coach will read it. And so sometimes, there's a whole course there for coaches and parents and like parent helpers and PE teachers to follow on understanding injuries on our site. And they may whet their appetite to kind of think, I'd like to learn more about Osgoods. I'd like to learn more about Severs. And so we've done like a course that's more directed at that level, just to help say, well, when can I play with pain? When can't I? When should I push a kid? When can't I push a kid?